You're watching Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
Welcome back to Picks on Politics. Just over 4 months until the Democratic primary for New York City mayor. It's early enough to still be anyone's game, and the field has 10 candidates at this point. Whitney Tilson wants to set himself apart. Tilson is a former hedge fund manager, a role he had for nearly 2 decades. Now he publishes investment newsletters. And as for public service, he helped found Teach for America and a number of other initiatives. He wants to turn his efforts now to politics and become New York City's next mayor. Mr. Tilson, thank you for coming on Picks on Politics and joining us today.
My pleasure.
So why mayor? I mean, you have this heavy finance background.
Yeah.
There's a competitive race, for example, for comptroller. So
right.
Why mayor? Why now?
Well, I've grown to love this city in the 30-plus years I've lived here. I'm fed up with how badly my party is managing the city, and I think we need someone who is not a career politician, who's outside the party machine, that runs this city and is running it badly, and there's no business person in the race, and so that's the lane. It's a narrow lane in this Democratic primary, but I'm the only one in it.
So we've heard, since the presidential election, really, it's the cost of groceries, it's the cost of housing. We've got some polling we're going to show viewers in a little bit that say economic issues still dominate. So how do you make the city more affordable, more livable?
Yeah, well, we spend double any other city in the world. And as a business person, I look at this and I was like, how are we not living in paradise? There should be, new construction everywhere. Businesses should be clamoring to invest here. Our subways should be the safest and cleanest. But instead, look at what the career politicians are delivering. And I'm fed up with it. I think New Yorkers are fed up with it, and I'm going to fix it.
Do you have a signature economic initiative you want to share? For example, the mayor's trying to get after this with his Yes to City for All, housing proposal. What are you proposing here?
Yeah, I actually agree with City for Yes. New York should be the most attractive real estate market in the country to invest in. We're by far the wealthiest city. We have incredible population density, a 1.4% vacancy rate, and sky-high rents. Every real estate person I talk to really wants to invest and build here, and instead the city has just made it impossible. And, we punch ourselves in the face over and over again. So changing, there's a whole series of things. Part of it is City of Yes and zoning. Part of it is just the government agencies that deal with real estate developers. They tell me consistently, quote, they treat us like the enemy. There just has to be, we should be welcoming people who want to invest and build more housing in this city because it's a crisis.
And you touched on public safety. We now have 2 officers on every train overnight. The mayor has, if not anything else, sort of, made the police department his sort of crown jewel of the city.
Right.
So what more could you do on public safety?
Well, I wouldn't have 4 police commissioners in my first 3 years. He talks a good game in terms of, as a former police officer himself, but what a disappointment. He claims that this is all just headlines, that we're in fact, quote, the safest large city in America. As recently as 5 years ago, we were one of the safest, but since then, the reality is the 7 major felonies are up 52% in the last 5 years. Felony assaults on our subways are up 150% in the last 5 years. So Mayor Adams is lying. This city has become materially less safe. And to fix a problem, you first have to say that there is a problem.
Well, the mayor would say that this is a perception problem, that the indexes have fallen each of the last 2 years. I know you're going back 5. So are we playing numbers games here, or is there a problem?
If we want to look at just the last 3 years that he has been mayor, he is correct. The murder rate, after spiking almost 60% in COVID, has come down 20%. We should all be grateful for that. The other 6 major felonies are up an average of 25% just in the last 3 years under his administration. Felony assaults citywide, this is a shooting, a stabbing, a severe beating, is at a 25-year high today. So New Yorkers aren't crazy. They're not imagining things. It is a lot less safe in this city.
On congestion pricing, the mayor, this is one of many topics, he kind of says, well, that's a state issue. He doesn't express a particularly strong opinion about that. Is that the type of mayor you would be when something is a state issue, not expressing an opinion? And what is your opinion on congestion pricing?
Well, first of all, the police officers and teachers who are going to work south of 60th Street obviously shouldn't have to pay that. That's when I learned that, I was like, that's crazy. My view is that we're sort of we have the worst of both worlds, a punitive tax, but it hasn't really eased congestion that much. I think the model here is Singapore, which congestion prices the whole city, not as a revenue scheme, but to get rid of congestion. I want to be the mayor that eliminates congestion in New York. It would take time, but there should be congestion pricing on the Cross Bronx if there's congestion.
So to be clear, you're for expanding congestion pricing, or you're saying this is just a bad application as currently applied?
I would have congestion pricing everywhere in the city, anywhere there's congestion, but have the price vary by the hour. So someone wants to come in during rush hour, there'll be a high price. Someone wants to come in when there's no congestion, there's no price at all.
One of the big issues in the news this week, I was covering this just a few days ago, was the mayor's seeming lack of transparency around his health scare, where he seemed to refuse to concede for any amount of time that he was under anesthesia for that colonoscopy, and then we found out it was actually 3 weeks earlier than we first thought. Yeah. Did he botch that one from a transparency test standpoint, or does he have some right to medical privacy, as he's argued?
I do think everyone has a right to some medical privacy, but the reason I think this has sort of become an issue is because he's spending all of his time right now trying to avoid prison and isn't doing his job as mayor. So he's sort of disappeared. He's stopped talking to the press. He's not out there talking to the communities. I suppose I don't blame him if I wouldn't want to go to prison either, but then again, I'm not corrupt.
Let's talk about your considerable wealth. And we laid out your financial background. So I'm sure, and if someone hasn't, I'm going to ask you, you're talking to folks at the bodega, you're talking to folks at your various events. Are people asking you, wait, how can you relate to my life experience? And how are you answering that question?
Well, the answer is I'm not a Mike Bloomberg billionaire for sure. I am participating in the city's matching funding program. I'm not self-funding. So I've gotten broad support from New Yorkers, but I have a little bit of an unusual background that what you might initially perceive. My parents met and married in the Peace Corps. I spent half my childhood in Tanzania and Nicaragua, and I've been fighting my whole life for working class people and people who may not have had the same advantages I've had in life, because I think every American should have a fair shot at the American dream. And so you mentioned Teach for America, been on the board of KIPP Charter Schools, ran a nonprofit for 5 years called the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City, helping inner city and minority businesses. So I've been fighting for those folks my whole life.
Mr. Tilson, that's where we're going to have to leave it, but I really do appreciate you joining us. Best of luck as this race really intensifies, and we really appreciate you joining on Picks on Politics again. And Picks 11 has some exclusive polling coming up in the mayor's race. New Yorkers weigh in on the top issues that is driving votes and how former Governor Andrew Cuomo continues to impact the race, even though he hasn't declared for it yet. Picks on Politics coming back in 2 minutes.